Hi guys, this is Greg James with Greg James Designs. I design Barndominiums, and I've been getting quite a few questions on metal building versus metal pre-engineered steel building versus pole barn. Okay, what's the difference? Well, they're pretty significant. A pole barn is basically a 5 by 5 inch laminated treated pole or post that's set in the ground about 4 to 5 feet, and it's compacted in. Those posts are set about 5 to 8 feet apart. Then that is wrapped with 2x4 or 2x6s, and then there's a vertical panel, wall panel that goes up in a wood truss to span across, and then you have metal roof panels. That's kind of the traditional way to build it. The advantages of wood pole barn are they're quite a bit cheaper than pre-engineered metal or pre-engineered steel buildings. Your foundation is going to be a lot cheaper. You don't have footings and grade beams. You don't even have to put piers in if you don't want to. It just depends on what part of the country you're in, what your soil conditions are. But you save a huge amount of money on your concrete cost. Probably on a 12 to 1,500 square foot house or 2,000 square foot house, you're going to save $4 to $5 grand in labor, concrete labor and concrete material. So it's pretty significant. Pre-engineered metal buildings, bear in mind, you're probably not going to save a lot of money building a barndominium out of pre-engineered metal building. I would say if you like the look, then do it. If you want to save a whole bunch of money, then I think you're going to be really disappointed unless you have a way to get a lot of it done yourself. You're your own GC, that sort of thing. You're running your own subs. You can certainly save money if you do a lot of the work yourself. Absolutely. And so, but just don't go into it thinking, oh, we're going to save 30-40%. That's just not going to happen. And so now we'll tell you from contractors that I've spoke with from where I am, they said pole barn, it's a different story. A wood pole barn structure can finish out if you don't get too crazy with the interior as far as your trim package and everything. That's where you can really spend a lot of money, your fixtures and your trim and stuff. Run about 20-25% less than traditional homes. So that's a nice savings, and so that is something to consider. And a lot of people like the look of it. So to me, I think that's the first place you need to settle in your heart is, do you like the exterior look of the building? Do you like the barn look? And if that is, then I'd say go for it. But just don't go into it thinking you're going to save a huge amount of money. Now, one last thing on pre-engineered steel building, remember, you're building a house within a house. You have to frame the entire perimeter wall up inside the steel. You have large steel columns that you have to deal with in the design process, and it's not a problem if you plan that out where those steel columns are. I try to make them fall like in a closet or hide them somewhere to where they really don't show. And so, but just bear in mind, there's going to be between a 12 and a 16-inch deep steel, gray big old steel column sticking out of the wall. Okay, and so that's just part of the deal. One of the downsides to barndominiums, well, I wouldn't, depending on what they are, especially with steel, if you get crazy with the roof geometry of the building, it's going to get real expensive. So if you want hips and hip roofs, and if you want dormers, and that's really going to just drive your cost way up, because all that stuff takes extra steel, takes extra support, all that takes extra engineering. So just bear that in mind. Another thing with a pre-engineered steel building, most people understand, is you have a much bigger foundation than a traditional home. To where a traditional home, you may have a just standard footings, 16 by 16 box, or spread footing of 24 by 8, whatever, and a stem wall and a floor, and you're done. But not so with a pre-engineered metal building. Excuse me. Everywhere where those big steel columns frames sit, there have to be large piers put into those frames, and depending on where you are and what's your soil condition. If you have really crappy soil, then brother, I'm telling you, you're going to spend a fortune on the foundation in steel and in concrete so that you don't have an issue down the road. And so just bear that in mind. Some of those piers can be 3-4 foot diameter under those big steel columns, depending on how high the building it goes. And most of my customers want a 2-story building, so that's a big building, that has to sit on those piers. So just bear that in mind. Your foundation cost is going to be more expensive than a traditional home. Okay, so just be aware. And so are there advantages? Sure. I think obviously the cheaper route is if that's your concern, is going to be a traditional wood pole barn structure, because you're starting with wood. And so all you have to do, like on the perimeter walls, is just infill between the posts. You're good to go, and you got a wall. You already have roof trusses. You just have to put a little bit of extra support up there to carry the span of the sheetrock, and you got a roof structure. Not so with a pre-engineered metal building. You got to frame everything. You've got to, unless you're going to leave the roof exposed, which some people do. I think it looks kind of cool. If you like that industrial look, you can do that. Some people spray foam the thing, paint all the ductwork, kind of like in a restaurant, or you go into Starbucks or coffee shop. A lot of times, most of the time those big roof decks on those metal structures, they just leave them exposed, and they just paint everything, call it good. And so that saves them a lot of money. So I hope that helps. But 2 different types. There's really 3. I'll close with this. There's a pre-engineered steel building, which is an I-beam building. Okay, so that's where you take your floor plan to a metal building manufacturer. They give you back a quote with a little package of drawings, and it's got all these steel beams and all the steel components. They're all pre-engineered. All the engineering's worked out. Anchor bolt plan for your foundation, all that good stuff. Then there's a weld-up metal building, which are not as common, but still, a lot of people, there's a lot of great contractors that are great welders and GCs that they weld up these buildings. They basically buy square tubing, and they literally cut the components on the job and weld it all together. And that has its advantages and disadvantages. So usually the roof truss system, you can have that engineered, because really the roof truss is the most important part of the building. And so, especially if you're in an area where you have high snow loads and stuff, you have heavy snowfall, that's really important. So, and then thirdly, you got your pole barn structure. So that's your wood post and beam structure. You got a post every 5 to 8 feet, and a wood truss that spans across, and then a metal veneer. All the outside of all these pretty much look the same. So it just depends on what your budget is, what kind of structure you're comfortable with as a homeowner. And as far as financing, my understanding is it doesn't really matter. A barndominium's a barndominium, so they have to treat them a little different on the financing side. They have to find comps. That's always the biggest issue with these. Is if you have a 2,500 square foot barndominium sitting on 5 acres somewhere, they have to go find a 2,500 acre barndominium sitting on 5 acres, and it may be 50 miles away. So that's usually the biggest challenge with the financing side, is the comps. So anyway, I hope this helps. Feel free to reach out to me if you need me to help you. My rates are very affordable. I have creative designs, and I'd love to help.